Hi, it's Sidney Kean again, and I am reading Pinocchio by Carlo Colodi, Chapter 2. As soon as he reached home, Geppetto took his tools and set to work to cut out and model his puppet. "What name shall I give him?" he said to himself. "I think I will call him Pinocchio. It is a name that will bring him luck. I once knew a whole family so called. There was Pinocchio, the father, Pinocchia, the mother, and Pinocchi, the children, and all of them did very well. The richest of them was a beggar." Having found a name for his puppet, he began to work in good earnest, and he first made his hair, then his forehead, and then his eyes. The eyes being finished, imagine his astonishment when he perceived that they moved and looked fixedly at him. Geppetto, seeing himself stared at by those two wooden eyes, took it almost in bad part, and said in an angry voice, "Wicked wooden eyes! Why do you look at me?" No one answered. He then proceeded to carve the nose, but no sooner as he made it than it began to grow. And it grew and grew and grew until in a few minutes it had become an immense nose, and that seemed as if it would never end. Poor Geppetto tired himself out with cutting it off, but the more he cut and shortened it, the longer did that impertinent nose become. The mouth was not even completed when it began to laugh and deride him. "Stop laughing!" said Geppetto, provoked, but he might as well have spoken to the wall. "Stop laughing, I say!" he roared in a threatening voice. The mouth then ceased laughing, but put out its tongue as far as it would go. Geppetto, not to spoil his handiwork, pretended not to see, and continued in his labours. After the mouth, he fashioned the chin, then the throat, then the shoulders, the stomach, the arms, and the hands. The hands were scarcely finished when Geppetto felt his wig snatched from his head. He turned round, and what did he see? He saw his yellow wig in the puppet's hands. "Pinocchio, give me back my wig, instantly!" But Pinocchio, instead of returning it, put it on his own head, and was in consequence nearly smothered. Geppetto, at this insolent and derisive behaviour, felt sadder and more melancholy than he had ever been in his life before. And turning to Pinocchio, he said to him, You young rascal, you are not yet completed, and you are already beginning to show want of respect to your father. This is bad, my boy, very, very bad." And he dried a tear. The legs and the feet remained to be done. When Geppetto had finished the feet, he received a kick on the point of his nose. "Oh, I deserve it," he said to himself. "I should have thought of it sooner. Now it is too late." He then took the puppet under his arms, placed him on the floor to teach him to walk. When his legs became flexible, Pinocchio began to walk by himself and to run about the room until, having gone out of the house door, he jumped into the street and escaped. Poor Geppetto rushed after him, but was not able to overtake him, for that rascal Pinocchio leapt in front of him like a hare, and knocking his wooden feet together against the pavement, made as much clatter as 20 pairs of peasant clogs. "Stop him! Stop him!" shouted Geppetto, but the people in the street, seeing a wooden puppet running like a racehorse, stood still in astonishment to look at it, and laughed. At last, a carabinier, hearing the uproar, imagined that a colt had escaped from the master. Planting himself courageously with his legs apart in the middle of the road, he waited with the determined purpose of stopping him and thus preventing the chance of worse disasters. When Pinocchio saw the carabiniere barricading the whole street, he endeavoured to take him by surprise and to pass between his legs. But the carabiniere, without disturbing himself in the least, caught him cleverly by the nose. It was an immense nose, and consigned him to Geppetto. Geppetto intended to pull his ears at once, but imagine his feelings when he could not find them. And do you know the reason? It was that in his hurry to model him, he had forgotten to make them. Pinocchio threw himself on the ground and would not take another step. A crowd of idlers and inquisitive people began to assemble and to make a ring around them. It ended in so much being said and done that the carabiniere at last set Pinocchio at liberty and conducted Geppetto to prison. Pinocchio, finding himself free from the clutches of the carabiniere, ran off as fast as his legs could carry him. Having arrived at the house, he threw himself seated on the ground and gave a great sigh of satisfaction. "Cree, cree, cree!" "Who calls me?" said Pinocchio in a fright. "It is I. I am the talking cricket, and I have lived in this room 100 years and more. Now, however, this room is mine," said the puppet, "and if you would do me a pleasure, go away at once." "I will not go," answered the cricket, "until I have told you a great truth." "Tell it me then, and be quick about it." "Woe to those boys who rebel against their parents and run from home. They will never come to any good in the world, or sooner or later they will repent bitterly." "Sing away, cricket, as you please, and as long as you please. For me, I have made up my mind to run away tomorrow at daybreak, because if I remain, I will not escape the fate of all other boys. I shall be sent to school and shall be made to study, but it is much more amusing to run off after butterflies or to climb trees and to take birds' nests. Poor little goose! But do you not know that in that way you will grow up a perfect donkey? And that everyone will make game of you." "Hold your tongue, you wicked, ill-omened croaker!" shouted Pinocchio. But the cricket, who was patient and philosophical instead of becoming angry at this impertinence, continued in the same tone. "But if you do not wish to go to school, why not at least learn a trade, if only to enable you to earn honestly a piece of bread?" "Do you want me to tell you?" replied Pinocchio, who was beginning to lose patience. "Amongst all the trades in the world, there is only one that really takes my fancy." "And that trade? What is it?" "It is to eat, drink, sleep, and amuse myself, and to lead a vagabond life from morning to night." "As a rule," said the talking cricket with the same composure, "all those who follow that trade end almost always either in a hospital or in prison." "Take care, you wicked, ill-omened croaker! Woe to you if I fly into a passion!" "Poor Pinocchio, I really pity you." "Why do you pity me?" "Because you are a puppet. And what is worse, you have a wooden head." At these last words, Pinocchio jumped up in a rage, and snatching a wooden hammer from the bench, he threw it at the talking cricket. Perhaps he never meant to hit him, but unfortunately it struck him exactly on the head, so that the poor cricket had scarcely breath to cree, cree, cree. And then he remained dried up and flattened against the wall. Night was coming on, and Pinocchio, remembering that he had eaten nothing all day, began to feel hungry, a hunger that was really quite insupportable. He then began to run about the room, searching in the drawers and in every imaginable place in hope of finding a bit of bread. If only it was a dry bit of bread, a crust, a bone left by a dog, a little mouldy pudding of Indian corn, a fishbone, a cherry stone. In fact, anything that he could gnaw. But he could find nothing. Nothing at all. Absolutely nothing. And in the meanwhile his hunger grew and grew, and poor Pinocchio had no other relief than yawning, and his yawns were so tremendous that sometimes his mouth almost reached his ears. And after he had yawned, he spluttered and felt as if he was going to faint. Recovering, however, from his stupefaction, he began to cry and scream and stamp his feet on the floor in desperation, and amidst his sobs he said, "Ah, indeed the talking cricket was right. If I had not run away from home, and if my papa was here, I should not now be dying of hunger. Oh, what a dreadful illness hunger is!" And as his stomach cried out more than ever, and he did not know how to quiet it, he thought he would leave the house and make an excursion in the neighbourhood in hopes of finding some charitable person who would give him a piece of bread. There is a lesson in there. I wonder if you saw it.